Railways and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw. Mr. Vaishnaw, really appreciate your time. The capital outlay of 2.4 lakh that has been provided for the railways. This is the highest ever outlay and is 9 times the outlay made in 2013-2014. What does it mean for job creation, sir?
I would like to thank Honorable Prime Minister for giving record allocation to railways, and this will really make a very big difference in passenger experience, in logistics for the country, in terms of job creation. See, 10 years back, railway was laying just about 4 kilometers new tracks every day. That was nothing compared to the need, nothing compared to the infrastructure which this large country needs, right? Today we are at 12 kilometers a day. So this is a huge significant jump, and with this kind of capital allocation that we have received today, we should be able to cross 16 kilometers a day in the next fiscal. Wow. Simultaneously, we have taken up, under Prime Minister's clear vision, we have taken up 1,275 stations for complete redevelopment to world-class standards.
That's right.
So these include very large stations like New Delhi, Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminal, and many medium stations and many small stations also. So throughout the country, the passenger experience changes with this. Okay. Then comes the Vande Bharat train. The first 8 trains are a resounding success. People have accepted it very well. The occupancy rate is more than 100% in most of the networks, most of the legs. So we are going to ramp up manufacturing of Vande Bharat trains significantly this year. Currently it is manufactured at ICF Chennai, one location. This year we will, after this budgetary allocation, we would be ramping up to Sonipat in Haryana, in Uttar Pradesh, as well as in Maharashtra. Latur, Maharashtra, Raebareli, Uttar Pradesh. So that way Vande Bharats will be manufactured at 4 locations. And we are also coming up with a hydrogen train. Again, the focus of the budget is on green growth.
That's right.
So in that spirit, we are developing. Prime Minister gave us the target that hydrogen train should be designed in India, developed in India, made in India. So by December 2023, we will be rolling out hydrogen train.
Congratulations on that, certainly. But Mr. Vaishnaw, Railways is the biggest employer in this country. The question that is being asked by analysts and also your political opponents is if this increase in outlay will translate into job creation.
Definitely it will. I would like to put some facts here. In the last 8 years, Railways has given 3,74,000 direct employment to India's youth within the railway department itself. Right now we are undergoing a process by which we will be employing 1,45,000 people. Listen, in the state of Rajasthan, every 2 to 3 months when they set up any exam for recruitment, there are paper leaks, there are all kinds of problems.
That's right.
Railways, in Prime Minister's leadership, has completed this process in an absolutely transparent and flawless way.
Sir, you know, you are right, because as a reporter who has covered railways as a beat, there's a significant shift in the manner in which the Rail Bhavan is functioning under your leadership. My question to you is, just recently you had put out certain pictures of fencing that is happening around, along the route of Vande Bharat. How many more kilometers? And which are these routes? And, traditionally we used to have railway budget and the general budget separate. The budgets have been, it is one budget now. That happened several years ago. But sir, the question then is, what about new trains? वो कैसे पता चलेगा कितनी नई trains आ रही हैं?
See, everything is very transparently put in the detailed demand for grants. The fencing that we have adopted is a very nice design. A lot of thought has gone in it. The idea was that no large cattle should be able to come over to the tracks, and simultaneously it should provide the flexibility because our tracks are on surface. They are not elevated or They are not on very large embankments. So very carefully thought through design has been made. We have started doing it on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad section. Very soon we will be doing it for about 1,500 kilometers. And this is just one of the steps. There are multiple steps that we are taking under Prime Minister's guidance. We are going for automatic signaling. For Kavach, last year we took 3,000 kilometers. This year we are taking up 5,000 kilometers. Then we are going for double distance signaling. All those steps, automatic electronic interlocking for the stations, central control system. All these things are helping us upgrade the tracks from 70-80 kmph capacity, which was there 10 years ago, now to 100 plus universally, 130 and 160 in many sections, and hopefully within 2 to 3 years time, most of the big cities would be connected by tracks which are capable of doing 160 kmph. See, I recently traveled from Davos to Zurich in train.
That's right.
And the quality of ride that we have in Vande Bharat, that is comparable or a notch better than what we find in the most developed countries. The sound levels again comparable and a notch better. Acceleration certainly better. So today we have used India's talent under Prime Minister's clear guidance, India's talent to develop world-class manufacturing, and over a period of next 3 years, we should be looking at railways as a major exporter of technology and products.
Now joining me, Dr. Puri, really appreciate your time. The budget has allocated 79,000 crore for the PMAY, which is a hike of 66%, which will ensure that the urban poor get a home. जो छत चाहिए थी उनको मिल जाएगी अपने सर के ऊपर. Do you think this would be a game changer, particularly for the 2024 elections for the BJP?
Maria, first of all, I think that the honest answer is that I'm very encouraged with the provisioning of 79,000 crores. But please note that this is provisioning both for the urban and the rural sector. Equally, you must realize that when Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is implemented in the rural sector, it creates, as you said, employment. It will mean more cement, it will mean more steel, etc. But this is part of an overall approach which the budget takes. Why do you start with 79,000 crores for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana? I would go back to the 10 lakh crores, the increase from 7.5 lakh crores to 10 lakh crores on capital expenditure, which is in fact a 33% increase from 7.5 lakh crores. But what is more serious is that 1,30,000 crore will go to the state governments. The state governments will be able to utilize some of it as conditional and some of it is unconditional for effecting reform, etc. So the budget is growth oriented, it is development oriented, and I think a confident finance minister under the overall guidance of the Prime Minister has delivered a budget which is in fact an essential part of the roadmap to India becoming a Viksit Desh or a developed country by 2047.
Mr. Puri, has the budget lowered risk factors which are arising out of the global concerns that have been there regarding slowdown, the war in Ukraine, and also the inflationary numbers?
Maria, my take on the global situation, the turbulence and the risk factor, if you give me just half a minute, let me explain this to you. The global uncertainty did not come with the Russia-Ukraine military conflict. The global problems arose essentially before that, because after March 2020, we were in a virtual global lockdown position. The economic activity had come to a stop because of the dreaded pandemic, and many countries had introduced a very strong stimulus packages, some countries as large as $20 trillion. Now, if you have an additional $20 trillion chasing the same amount of goods and services, and then there are disruptions in the supply chains, in the labor chain, obviously, in a super inflationary situation, people start discussing the big R. The good news is that the United States, which is the largest economy in the world, has started looking much better, and even the European challenges, I think today appear, I mean, to commentators and economists, less severe. I mean, the winter in particular, I mean, it was not that severe. Another large economy started picking up. So hopefully economic recovery globally and worldwide will not face the imminent threats that it was facing earlier.
Okay.
It's not my case that there are no challenges. Challenges there will be. But we are, as an economy, which is the fastest growing economy, growing at 6.5 to 7%, very well positioned, Maria, to brave those challenges and to negotiate forward, which we did very well, both on the energy front. We diversified our sources of supply. We bought from wherever we could. We are increasing the domestic E&P. We are increasing our green transition. We are going into 20% biofuel blending. We are going into CBG in a big way. And the budget today provides all the ammunition that we require for CBG. For instance, the 5% mandatory blending of CBG. Also, that the problem of FOM will be addressed. So I am delighted to see these provisions in the budget, as I am to see the 79,000 crores. But that 79,000 crores also means that, this is ongoing work. It also means that on the rural area, where we need to address some economic activity issues, this will be helpful in that.
Two political heavyweights of Indian politics. Jai Panda, BJP National Vice President, is joining me, and I can see Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP. Really appreciate your time. Dr. Tharoor, you have been demanding that an education budget be hiked. The Congress says defense budget should have been hiked and the health expenditure should have been hiked as well. So the good news for you is that the defense budget has been hiked by 6%, education by 13% and health by 15%. So will you compliment Nirmala Sitharaman today?
Oh, listen, as far as the capital outlay in defense is concerned, the hike is somewhat less than you've suggested. In fact, it doesn't take into account inflation. But when it comes to health and education, yes, I'm reasonably happy with the allocations. I might add, however, as Mr. Chidambaram pointed out in the Congress press conference, part of the difficulty with this government is there is a gap between allocations and actual expenditure. We've been hearing a lot about capital expenditure. We heard Zaka talking about how it's a capex budget. The truth is that last year, they also had increased capex allocations, but they spent 22,000 crores less than they allocated. So will they be able to spend the money they're planning to extend to allocate more? We don't know. Ultimately, drawing up targets and announcing objectives is one thing, fulfilling them is another. And the government's track record over the last 8 or 9 years in fulfilling the announced goals has been less than desirable. Okay,
Mr. Panda, your opening statement here. The charge coming from the Congress and other political opponents of yours is that you overpromise and underdeliver.
First of all, I would like to thank Shashi for his graciousness in acknowledging at least some parts of the budget, which he appreciates. But let me counter some of the other aspects. This is a massive gear shift forward, because if you see on the infrastructure front, 33% rise to 10 lakh crores is just mammoth. And this actually is a tripling over last 3 years, because 3 years ago, the capex budget for infrastructure was 3.5 lakh crores. Then it went up to 5.5 lakh crores, and it went up to 7.5 lakh crores last year. And now that's gone up to 10 lakh crores. And the reality is that we have proven, the Modi government has proven implementation in all of this. If you compare to the budgetary estimate and the actual implementation, we've achieved very close to what was committed, very, very minor shortcomings that Shashi is talking about. So there is a track record of not only promising, but also implementing.
Okay,
you've seen the same thing in railways,
okay.
And this year sees the largest allocation for railways ever,
yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yes, Jai Panda, one charge, of course, is that you haven't really put out a roadmap for employment generation and employment creation. Increasing outlay in various sector may be appropriate and the way forward, but what about Naukri?
employment comes from these outlays and from the implementation of the outlays. Again, I point out that if you look at the last 3 years, the reason India is today being celebrated, the Indian economy is being celebrated around the World Bank, the IMF, everybody points out as the sole shining light of the global economy, is because the government has been fiscally prudent and has demonstrated its ability to implement all these allocations, all these outlays. I mentioned about infrastructure, I mentioned about railways. This year we have the highest ever budget for education. This year we have the highest ever budget for health. Now, this is how jobs get created. And jobs don't get created by just giving handouts. And if you look at the data coming out over the past several months, this is getting vindicated. You're getting jobs figures that are notching up more than 1 million jobs a month, which has always been the target for India. And this doesn't happen out of the blue. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because of these massive layouts. Now, there's another 50 new airports and heliports and waterways that are going to be developed just this year alone, on top of everything that has been invested in the last few years. So these are all creating jobs, and you can see that. Jobs has always been a challenge in India.
Okay.
The recent figures coming on top of these investments over the last several years is very promising.
Okay, Dr. Tharoor, in a post-pandemic era, we had heard a lot from opposition leaders, all of them presenting a doomsday scenario for India, saying that, inflation will jump, there'll be joblessness, massive joblessness. But whatever said and done, the IMF and all the world bodies are saying certainly that India is the bright spot on the otherwise, very doomsday kind of a scenario as far as global economy is concerned. So, India rising from 10th to the 5th largest in the world in the past 9 years, that's certainly something that you'll compliment again.
Yeah, though I must admit that that's a prediction that we frankly have been hearing even since UPA was in power. So we have fulfilled a prediction which was very much on the cards given natural growth in our economy. But let me come back to the specific points you and Jay made, Maria. First, on the question of unemployment. We have, unfortunately, as of December 2022, an incredibly high unemployment rate at 8.3%, according to the CMIE. And our youth unemployment is colossal. That is, young people between 19 to 29 is up at 16%, which is simply astonishing. It's even worse in my state of Kerala, where it's 40% youth unemployment. And the problem is many of these are educated and skilled people who don't have jobs. So that's a very serious problem. Unemployment is something that has not actually been tackled directly. It was not even mentioned in the finance minister's speech. Second, I'm not at all against infrastructure development. I think it's great to see good progress being made in infrastructure, but there's also a question of priorities. At whose expense is this coming? You look at the budget carefully, you find Manrega slashed to record low levels of 60,000 crores, when last year the 89,000 crores allotted after the supplementary demands were made by the ministry were not found enough. So knowing that the money they had for Manrega was not enough to cope with demand, how can they actually continue to slash it further? And that too by such a large cut, 33% cut down to 60,000. Similarly, we're seeing significant cuts in the Ministry of Women and Child Development. We're seeing cuts in the Integrated Child Development Scheme. In the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which has gone from 5,000 crores, to 3,000 crores, or less than 3,100 crores. Ministry of Labour has been hacked. So somehow the priorities of the government are not at all towards the most vulnerable, towards the
But
poorest.
Dr. Tharoor, won't you say that there's repurposing or understanding of a new kind of constituency, the Dalits, the tribals, the OBC bloc? Because if you look at Prime Minister Awas Yojana, which has been hiked by 66% to now 79,000 crore, 1.7 million homeless residents, mostly from Dalit, tribal and OBC bloc, are benefiting from it. So the government clearly has also shown a roadmap for 2024. They are preparing for it, sir.
Look, we can show you speeches from the government that were pledging to eliminate homelessness 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, the fact is that they are behind their own targets. But okay, let's hope they can implement it. We all want every Indian to have a roof over his head. And one more thing that Jay talked about, the capex outlay going up to 10 lakh crore rupees. The fact is many of the state governments are complaining that this has come at the cost of a reduction in grants to states, which have basically been replaced with interest-free loans. So it's kind of a magic exercise. You're converting grants to loans, you're converting revenue spending to capital investment, and that's how you're able to show a dramatic increase in capital investments. It doesn't actually address the real problems that state governments are facing.
Okay.
According to
Zaka,
many
you have a
state
question for Jay Panda?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that the BJP needs to sort of come to terms with, and this has been a problem for a number of years now, the highest amount of revenues that the government spends on is actually on interest payments. If you look at it, it's 20 rupees for every 100 rupees of taxes that the government earns. 20 rupees goes into just debt financing. So 10 lakh crores, the headline figure is great. And I said this at the top as well. The fact that she's managed to do this with the fiscal glide path at 6.4 this year, at 4.5 eventually in 25-26, 5.9 next year, that is commendable. But the interest component, debt servicing, Jay Panda, how does government plan to bring that down? Because that is not even productive expenditure, as it were.
So, first of all, again, the 10 lakh crores in capex must be seen in context. It's not plucked out of thin air. It comes on 3 years of solid growth. 3.5 lakh crores 3 years ago, 5.5 lakh crores 2 years ago, 7.5 lakh crores this current year. And so it is a demonstration of actual ability to implement. Now, as far as interest servicing, you will recognize that considering what the world economy has gone through post-pandemic, most countries' economies are in a fiscal catastrophe. You've seen the situation of countries in our own neighborhood, but that's also the same thing in developed economies around the world. So considering all of that, I think the government has done a very good job of fiscal management. I would also like to address something else. You know, Shashi has a pet peeve about Manrega, and he brings it up every year. I want to try and put an end to this. As everybody is aware, Manrega is a demand-driven program, and the demand for it will be met. The budgetary estimates are based on the fact that there is massive investment happening, which is, you know, the typical client for Manrega, the rural Indian who wants a sure job, is going to get jobs anyway because of the massive construction that's going on. You know, you just mentioned the 2/3 increase in PM Awas Yojana. Who's going to work on building those homes? The very same people who would have been working on Manrega. Now, similarly, when people quib about, let's say, the health budget, for instance, they take it out of context. They don't take into account the 137 new nursing colleges that are going to be put up this year alone. Now, just think about that. 137 new nursing colleges is massive. So, you know, this budget is the one reason it is win-win. I want your viewers to just think about this for a moment, because for 9 years, Prime Minister Modi and his finance ministers, the late Arun Jaitley and Nirmala Sitharamanji, have taken very tough decisions. It wasn't easy to implement GST. It has been smoothed out, and now month after month we keep getting record collections. That is why 35,000 crores of net relief can be given to taxpayers. Yes. The middle class is exultant because this is possible. So we have the fastest growing economy. We have the best managed fisc. We have inflation far better under control than almost every other country, and yet the economy is able to afford tax relief for Indian taxpayers. I think that's something that we ought to cheer about.
Okay.
So could I just offer
yes,
two
yes, Dr. Tharoor.
To what Jay just said. Number one, on the question of demand for Manrega, I'm sorry to say he's wrong. I've checked the latest figures, and while demand has gone down slightly compared to the pandemic years, obviously much less work was happening, it is still higher than pre-pandemic levels. The current rate of demand is estimated at 21% higher demand than in the pre-pandemic years. And the fact is that requires a higher allocation. This government has been told by experts that the current level of demand warrants a 1.4 lakh crore allocation to Manrega. Last year, they weren't able to meet the demand, and even then they came in for a supplementary demand of 89,000 crores. This year, mysteriously, they have slashed that to 60,000 when the need was for more, not for less. So that's on the actual numbers of Manrega. Secondly, on the question of interest payments, Jay glossed over the very frank question you asked him. The news is even worse than what you asked, because the truth is interest rates are going up worldwide. It's not just our problem, it's everyone's problem, conceded. But as interest rates go up, the percentage of resources that are being wasted, the 20 out of 100 rupees that you mentioned, is likely to increase further, and particularly with outstanding loans that we have no intention of paying back. And don't forget that even the capex money we're talking about is money that is going for the most part as interest-free loans to states rather than as grants to states. So there are some real issues with these numbers here. I don't think we should have the eyes of the audience glazing over with too many numbers, but the fact is that these numbers are not quite what my good friend Jay is touting them out.